And well, so should be good now.
Yeah, so click on chat.
Click on chat.
There we are. Hey, everyone.
Let me hit record first before we do anything else.
Yes.
Okay, now we can get going.
Yay, we're on time and everything.
Wow. I know, it's like a miracle, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're here with Catherine today to talk about, it's hard for me to put this on. Is there more to writing than just writing? And what was Thomas's response?
What else is there?
Yeah, I know.
But yours would be, is there more to life than writing?
That's true. We used to be like that. I used to be like, oh, you know.
Yeah.
So that mellowed a little bit.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know, most people who are in your courses are probably of the mind that there's more to writing than just writing, from what I can see.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not all about performance and training and moving up the levels, right? There's a whole lot more to it. It's like the tip of the iceberg.
Right. So I thought we could explore this a little bit today in this little conversation.
And yeah, actually, you know, the more I do this and write, and the more experience I gather, the more I realize that top level performances are really not possible without that iceberg underneath the water, that relationship and that trust and that bond and everything else, you know. So. And
even a top level performance in another sport, even that doesn't involve a whole other sentient being, I think it has a whole iceberg underneath it too. It's very much, there's a mind game, you know, and it's not just mindset, right? It's also, you know, that it gives you the opportunity to look into the darkest recesses of yourself.
Yes, I think that's for me, I think that it wasn't necessarily surprising, but I think I was surprised by what I learned about myself. I knew that I would learn about myself, but I was surprised what I learned about myself through coming back into riding and owning a horse. And I think I've come up against parts of myself that I would just be able to avoid in human relationships, or have been able to, maybe by avoiding certain types of people with certain types of relational patterns. I don't know, but
good point.
But that isn't the case when it comes to my horse, because, you know, he is honest, very, very honest, and I just don't get away from that. And so it can be incredibly uncomfortable, but then how do we develop without discomfort? I don't think it's possible. I think we need to be uncomfortable in order to develop as human beings. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the friction and resistance forces us to reflect, right, and take a step back and evaluate the situation. What am I doing? What is the horse doing? Where is this coming from? You know, why is this happening? You know.
Yes.
And for, you know, in my own, you know, writing experience, very often, you know, I had certain ideas of what I wanted to do and I had certain ideas of how things were supposed to go. And then it didn't work that way. And I had to adjust my expectations and reevaluate the situation and accept that, well, the horse is not where I thought he was. And well, where is the horse now? So you go down a level and another level and another level until you feel like, okay, here we're on solid ground. So very often it seems like you have to slow down, check your ambition, find out where the horse is, find out where is the starting point here for the conversation with the horse. What does he know? What does he not know? And also what, you know, kind of baggage does he bring? If it's a new horse, if you're getting a new horse in training, or if you're buying a new horse, there's often a lot of trauma that nobody told you about, right? Because people just lie about things.
Or they're unaware.
Or they're
it's
unaware,
not even that they lie. I mean, there is that too, but they're also unaware. You know, there's a lot of that. It's not that they intentionally lie. They just don't even realize that the horse has trauma from things.
Yes, and I mean, from what I've, you know, from the research that I've done, it's not in the horse's interest to show that they have trauma to within the herd structure. You know, they need to show that they're not vulnerable, otherwise in a herd situation they get pushed out. So I think that comes into it. You know, I think that one of the struggles that we all have is, you know, we see that maybe our horse is a bit uncomfortable in a movement, but is the horse in pain? Does the horse have ulcers? Does the horse just not understand? It's very, very difficult to really know for sure. And I think what you said, both of you just there, about not being aware and not knowing, is when you've got a huge amount of experience like you guys, you will know more. And yet there are going to be times where you don't know. I mean, this is what I find in my own life. There are times where I feel like I know, and then I don't know. And I realize I don't know when I thought I knew. And that is very interesting. You're getting a slight breakup with you guys, but there you go, you're back. Yeah.
The little notification that our internet is a little shaky.
Yeah.
But yeah, what you were saying is what we run into all the time too. Sometimes you just know that something isn't right, but you don't know exactly what it is, where it comes from, and then you have to research that.
Yes.
It could be all kinds of things. Yeah, it could be that the horse has pain somewhere. You know, it could be that he is nervous, that he's afraid, that he's angry because of whatever happened to him before he came to you.
Yes.
And then it's like this mystery that you have to solve. You know, it's like a detective kind of game in a way. And the horse always gives you clues, and in a way the horse will always tell you what happened to him and what's wrong with him, but it's not always very easy to interpret the clues, right? It's not like he can tell you in plain English, but
No.
they're like little reactions, and you know, you have to see in what context he does what, and then sometimes you can reconstruct what must have happened to him.
Yes. And what you said, yes, and what you said, Shana, earlier about the iceberg, and Thomas, you said about going back and back, and sometimes you have to go back and back and back, or down and down, or to something more and more basic, to the point where we've had conversations, haven't we, Thomas, where with a horse that's traumatized, we're literally rocking the horse. And I've had times when I'm rocking the horse at a distance, not even touching my horse, because he didn't want me to touch him. And you know, that started, I think, after I started to listen to him, he let me know more and more what he wasn't comfortable with. So he would let me do all sorts of things when I first got him, because he didn't have a choice. That's from the competition background. You know, he just has a job, he gets on and does it, and if he doesn't do it, they will be probably quite punishing. And you know, it's very interesting sometimes how far you have to go back into the layers of the iceberg to find the place where there's a softness. And I don't mean that they can be moved around, but a softness which you can meet with your own softness. And that is, I think that's where, for me, the development in myself comes, is how soft internally can I really be, and how listening can I really be, and how quiet can I be in myself to be able to get to that point where I can connect to him in a place where he is able to soften rather than be defensive. And I know that my horse is on the extreme end of having had a tough start, but I see many, many people in the same situation. So yeah, I hope that you guys also can resonate with this.
What happened to me, you know, many times the people would say, you know, I don't know, give us the horse in training or whatever. And they were saying, well, he's been under saddle for X number of years and he does that and that, such and such a level, or these and that, those movements. And so in my mind, that means something, and I have an expectation, and it's like, oh my God, when I ride on that horse, how could he possibly do these movements? You know, and then you try, it's like all you see is holes, and he doesn't know this and he doesn't know that, he doesn't understand this, and feels horrible. And what does he know, right? So then that's where you have to go down another level and another level and another level. And eventually we figured out, you know what, the best thing or the fastest thing is really to go back to square one and pretend the horse has never been started under saddle, and just redo the whole process. And then you see what he knows and what he doesn't.
And then you might be pleasantly surprised along the way that, oh, this is very easy for the horse. He is obviously familiar with it, you know, and then it's not this cascade of disappointments and frustrations, you know.
He really should know this, you know, this should be easy if he's been ridden for that long and has done all these whatever,
Even competition horses that
Yeah.
had show results, they often still had gaping holes
Yeah.
in their training.
Yeah.
And it's just the way it is. Right?
Yes. And I mean, I think it's interesting because we're talking about more than riding. And
Exactly.
often riding is talked about as this partnership and a dance together and the communication and the back and forth. I think often that isn't really what's happening. I think often the human is talking quite a bit and the horse is expected to listen to the human. But I do not see a two-way dialogue often.
Yeah.
Very,
Often
very
not.
rare.
Yeah.
Very rare. And when I do see it, it is remarkable in the difference. And that's fine. Many people want to ride like that, and that's okay. But we're talking about something else, another possibility.
Right.
That's true.
Yes.
I found this marvelous quote actually, which actually is about people from my therapy work. And it says contact. In other words, the good connection you can have with another person in a relationship involves entering into a dialogue without controlling the other half of the dialogue.
Oh, yes. That is.
And so apt for how often that doesn't occur with horses.
Yeah. That's very true. And I was thinking actually when you were talking about how, QQ, your horse, had learned to function, basically put his head down and do the work, right?
Yes.
A lot of horses are like that, of course. And on some level that makes them easy to ride because you just push certain buttons and they function, right? But they're sort of in a shell, in a box, and they don't come out and they don't really communicate a whole lot. They don't show their personality. And then when you take a horse like that over and you want to develop a relationship and you allow him to show his personality, that can be very scary and disorienting for the horse.
Yes.
And then sometimes years of frustration and resentment come out, and it's directed at you, even though you're innocent. You had nothing to do with it, right?
Yes.
It's like you let the genie out of the bottle, and then the genie beats you up for a little bit, and then you have to. It's like this pendulum goes from being, horse shut down to being a little too expressive, and just venting the anger and all the resentment of all the things that were done to him.
Yeah.
And then you have to eventually find sort of a healthy, happy relationship where the horse knows there are boundaries, but he can voice his opinion and he can show you what he wants and what he doesn't want. But it's quite the journey. I mean, I had a student who in Pennsylvania, not Pennsylvania, New Jersey, who had imported an intermediate one horse who was quite successful in Europe. But it seems like all they ever did in Europe was ride him with a double bridle in test patterns. And outside of that, he knew nothing. And when she then tried to ride him normally and train him, and he got so angry with all these bottled up negative emotions came out. And before she bought him, he was like a push button horse, right? Really easy. And then, once the emotions came out, he became difficult. It's really interesting. And it took quite a while then and he didn't want to work, he just stopped and refused. And sometimes she sat on him for like 45 minutes, waiting for him to make a move, right?
Waiting for him to make a decision to try. Yeah.
Because he had been pushed around all his life.
He'd been shut down.
Yeah, and probably punished when he didn't move. And now she, wanted him more as a partner and allowed him to have an opinion and tell her, what he wants, what he doesn't want, what he likes, what he doesn't like. And then he went a little overboard first. And I think that's pretty normal. It's like abuse people the same way, right?
Yeah.
I could imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly working with people who, maybe haven't been physically abused, but certainly have not had the type of parenting that you might wish for. And so there's a certain level of emotional abuse. They have to say no a lot for a very long time before they can even start to even think of a yes. And I'm reminded of that often with Cuckoo, who competed at a high level and quite successfully. And, everyone's like, oh, you're going to do this and that. And I was like, well, I can't do that because that doesn't sit with me and my training and what my values. And then he did say no. And he said no strongly and often. That, I think, is where it gets really interesting for us, is are we working on ourselves to be able to handle that? You know, so if you want to have this type of thing where it's more than riding, the riding is absolutely beautiful and lovely, but we understand that what underlies that type of connection we feel in the riding is a good relationship of mutual trust and respect and listening to each other and yeah, then we need to be working on ourselves. We do, because otherwise I don't think you can handle, it's very difficult to handle that type of, it can feel like a rejection.
Totally,
yeah. And it's hard, you know, it's hard. So
yeah, and the horrible thing is that the horse went well supposedly with the previous trainer, right? And then he comes to the new owner who tries to be kind and, you know, have a nice relationship, and then everything falls apart. And then then people will say, well, you know, with that first trainer it worked really well, you just don't know how to ride. Just get over yourself, make him do it, you know.
Well, it's totally true, I didn't.
And that, you know, it takes a lot of, I don't know, courage or self-confidence and discipline to stay the course, and to realize, okay, this is part of the process. I've opened a can of worms, and now I kind of have to see it through, you know. Now,
and I think that exactly, and there's self-support, there's the resilience that we have, you know, as human beings, and that I'm working on all the time and you guys are working on. But there's also knowing how to get good support from your environment and from other people. And, you know, certainly that's how I found you guys, is I felt like I could get support in my situation that I hadn't been able to find in other places at all. I just found the opposite, actually. I'd found, you know, well, you know, you just get his head down and put some spurs on and off you go, you know. Well, yeah, because people wanted to see what he could do, you know. Show us what I went to a livery yard. I moved from the first livery yard, which was a nightmare. I went to the second one. He said, show us what he can do.
Yeah, this objectification.
Oh, it's just awful, you know. It's terrible. Yeah. Anyway, but yes, we got some interesting.
Yeah, here Kathleen Howie says this is exactly what happened with one of my mares. So internalized, and then she found her voice. She has taught me so much about listening, and now I hope to go forward with two-way dialogue.
Lovely.
And this can take a while. I mean, this can take 2-3 years before the horse is really over the old abuse and trauma and ready to start fresh, you know, and actually do work, you know. And then you feel like, oh my God, I'm just wasting time here. I'm just dawdling around and nothing is happening and we're not going anywhere. And who knows if this will ever work. This is really hard.
And you can start to question yourself oh, did I make a wrong judgment call? Am I doing the wrong thing? Maybe I should just boot him and make him do it, you know? You start to question yourself because you're really stepping out of the paradigm and treading a different unknown path, really, because it only reveals itself as you go down the path of what this horse needs. And that's scary. You have to trust in the process a lot. You have to value that relationship more than the outcome of movements and things, you know.
Exactly. In traditional, you know, riding lessons and training, the focus is always very much on the physical, athletic aspect, right? And, you know, we think of dressage as physiotherapy, but when you have an abused horse, you have to be a psychotherapist first. And then once you've given the horse psychotherapy for a while, then you...
It's a dodgy connection. I think you guys can hear me, but I suspect that Shannon.
Physical therapy.
Right.
Like they
we can
anyway, so I was saying that can you hear me?
We can.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I was just saying how, you know, the focus in dressage and riding in general is always so much on the athletic aspect and the physical aspect. And, you know, we sometimes talk about dressage as physiotherapy, but when you have like an abused horse, for example, you have to be a psychotherapist first. And you have to heal the mental trauma, and then you can start doing physical work. And that can take a long time. And I think for us as riders, that's super hard to have that patience and also trust that it'll work out.
And of course, you know, we are not necessarily psychotherapists ourselves. So
Exactly.
then we're
not
trying to
trained.
do something for someone else that maybe we need to have for ourselves as well,
Yeah,
which is an interesting dynamic.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's it's a world of possibilities. And I think what I wanted to say about the dialogue thing to Kathleen is, I think healthy dialogue, which between two beings, if you like, whether that's human to human or human to horse, isn't always lovely, but it's authentic. So, you know, you are allowed to feel pissed off, frustrated, those kind of things, if that's what you feel. And the horse also sometimes feels that. So sometimes you might feel you just miss each other. And that is how human relationships are too. And so it's not about avoiding all friction and pretending that everything is, you know, harmonious and gorgeous. It's about being, you know, exactly. It's about being honest and real, and your insides matching your outside. So what you're expressing is what you feel inside, and what you feel inside is what you express. Because your horse will always do that. Once you open up this Pandora's box, your horse will absolutely, I can tell you
Yes.
how they are in that moment. So you've got to be up for that. And
that's true.
So Kathleen said, yes, but she's so expressive in a different way now, and her body shape is changing without us having stepped into proper training. That's an interesting thing.
It's very interesting, isn't it?
So interesting. Absolutely. I don't do a huge amount of training, and yet my horse, the more we go along this path, the more he's rounding out and taking up his shape. It is the most extraordinary thing. And it's exciting, you know. It's just, lovely to see. So that's great, Kathleen. I'm happy for you.
You know, and it's this idea that trauma is also held in the body in tension, in muscular tension, or in patterns, you know, and that it shows itself too.
It really does.
You know? And when we address that and start to heal it, the beauty comes out.
Yeah, they carry themselves differently if they trust you and they're at ease than if they are always worried about getting beaten up and you know, always looking out for the next dangerous thing.
Or just shut down, like, fine, you know, just I'm just going to stay in here in my shell and do my job. You know? And then there's the whole other aspect that this work also gives us the opportunity to work on our relationship with ourselves and how we approach everything.
Yes. Indeed.
You know? Yeah. So there's so much more that's available, opportunities available to us than just learning to ride and learning to ride. You know, we learn so much more.
Yeah, I think it's the wonderful thing is, you know, like everybody, like I have my ways of covering up parts of myself that I don't necessarily want other people to notice. And, you know, that doesn't actually help me when I'm with my horse. It's actually it helps me to admit to all parts of myself. And the more I do that, the better the relationship with him gets. It's a really interesting thing. And the better the relationship gets, the softer he is, the more relaxed he is, the more available he becomes for training. Yeah. I mean, I have a joke with Caroline, who's one of our instructors. You know, she says, yes, now you can do some training. Now I've had him for 5 years. Now you can do some training. I couldn't really do any effective training at all because he wasn't available for it.
Yeah, it was not.
Yeah.
I mean, I've often thought that writing is sort of a path to self-realization, just like these Zen practices, like Zen and archery, or you can probably take anything, any activity. If you do it with a certain mindset, you will always come up against whatever, you know, weaknesses and dark spots you have in your personality, and you have to deal with them in order to get to the next level in whatever you do. You know,
and that's uncomfortable. You know, at times it's very uncomfortable, but it's also amazing if you are willing to go into that discomfort and look at it, and it changes.
Yes, absolutely. Where else are we? Ariana Aldrin. I'm guessing you have a story there, Ariana, and we don't know what it is. So
Yeah. So
Yes,
she
yes.
said, yeah, go ahead.
I didn't think I was going to get to ride my mare again, so more knowledge. Yeah.
You guys are breaking up again.
What the background is, that would be some.
There, I think we're back now.
Yeah, you are back. Yeah.
Yep.
Catherine Ifasuhu just posted a comment. She says, I can relate to this conversation so much. The more I listen, the more Santi expects me to respond. The more I expect of him in responding to training exercises with precision, the more he expects me to ask with precision. Yes, exactly. I have to take here. Hold on, I have to had to reframe his responses to me as questions for clarification when I don't get the response I expect. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, the horses develop expectations. You know, if you ride better and you ask or you expect a higher level of quality from the horse, then they expect a higher level of quality in your communication and your seat as well. And then all of a sudden, you know, you may sometimes realize that you're not up to the horse's expectations. Yes. Then the tables are turned. Now the horse is training us and says, well, you're not good enough. Yeah, happened to me in the past too.
Yeah,
you know?
And actually I think what comes across in your comment, Ava, is that you allow Santi to have an impact on you. You know, you're not so trying to get him to do what you want, that you listen to him, and sometimes that has an impact on you, which I presume you kind of go, oh gosh, you know, I'm obviously not communicating very clearly. But because you allow him to tell you and to have that impact on you, then everything stays fluid and changing rather than fixed. It's very funny when the internet gets a bit slow, then Thomas and Shana's movements get incredibly slow. You're like, ooh.
Okay, now it should be better, huh?
Yeah, it's better again now.
But yeah, it's interesting, you know, how the horse is training the rider is training the horse. We all have expectations of each other, and the horse, the more you allow him to voice an opinion, the more they can become taskmasters too. And they, well, that's not good enough. I want more. I expect more of you. You know, and it's funny, but it makes you ride better. It makes you more precise and makes you think more about what you're doing and how you're doing it. You know? So makes it more interesting. See here, Aoife saying, yes, definitely he does not let me get sloppy with my aids when I get tired or I'm in pain. Yeah, they get strict, these horses.
Yes.
Danielle says, yes, I can absolutely attest to this as well. My gelding is very sensitive emotionally, and the more I listen to him, the less he goes internal and the more he opens his body. His body is a direct reflection of his current mental state. It's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
And so is ours, and so is yours. Yeah. So you know, I'm working with someone at the moment who is going through a very, very difficult time, and the more difficult the time is, the more her back hurts. It is just how it is, you know, and I'm sure we're all familiar with that experience of when life is challenging, the tension that we carry with us can make our bodies feel, you know, sticky and uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had back problems when I was stressed about something. Yeah, so it was always a trigger.
Yes, exactly. Ariana has explained. Do you want to read that, Thomas, what Ariana says?
Sure. Yeah, Ariana says, yes, I have been waiting to ride when I felt I was relating comfortable for years in health horse, and all I got to do was relationship.
Right.
Went to work today, simple double lunge, and she was a great partner. Relationship so much better already, so I have to go.
So you feel unhigh.
Yeah, so better ready to train. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've taken the time out to just really work on the relationship, and
What's amazing is that it's valuable work. You know, you feel like you're not getting anything done. You are.
Yeah. So Jessica has an interesting question. Do you find a difference with mares, geldings, and stallions?
Loaded question.
Yeah, I mean, there are always individual
Of course, there are
differences.
differences.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But there are some differences. I mean, geldings are often a little bit maybe simpler emotionally,
Mhm.
but there are complicated geldings too, of course.
Mhm.
They're crazy
Yeah.
ones, but overall, I think they're more
Mhm.
easygoing, which is why they're very popular. And
They tend to be more stable. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't have their sex hormones, you know, at play. Same with the, you know, the mares, you know, they have these cycles. Stallions actually do too. You know,
yeah.
they actually have these fluctuations, hormonal fluctuations too. And geldings, this goes away. So you're just with the complexity of
steady,
just their personality, you know.
Yeah.
But
That's true. They're more
but yeah, I mean,
predictable and steady, I guess,
right.
emotionally.
But then, you know, certainly you see certain things come out in mares more than stallions or geldings, and more than stallions, and because you can't separate them from the hormonal process that's happening to them, because this affects them just like our hormonal process affects us. I can't, you know, it's very invalidating if he says, oh, knock it off, are you, you know, are you PMSing or something, you know, my feelings are valid regardless, right? The same thing with the mare or the stallion. Their feelings are valid. We still have to address them at face value.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing, is that in a sense, yes, there are differences, you know, between us and between each individual. And if we can, rather than looking for the ways that we're the same, we can look at how we're different as well, and how each person or each horse would like to be met, then we get less into sort of stereotypical fixing. I'm not entirely. Yeah, I can see that the sort of generalizations and stereotyping can be useful in a sense, and maybe sometimes if you're having a really hard time with your horse who's a mare, for example, you can say, well, it's because of these hormonal fluctuations, and maybe it makes it easier to handle as the person who's with that horse. But at the same time, how do you deal with what's happening in the moment?
Keep thinking about how to explain that, because there is a difference, but it's actually not easy to put into words. There's a different energy between mares and stallions, and stallions can be complex too, emotionally and mentally. They can have very complex personalities, and so do mares. It's very difficult to really.
Just they process things a little differently.
Yeah,
just like men and women do. You know, I can't separate myself and from that I'm a woman, you know, and it's just part of my makeup. And
stallions can get more distracted by other horses, you know, that are like in the pasture near the arena, or in the arena they have more of this rivalry and might want to put the other horse in their place, you know, when they feel like I got to show you who's boss, you know. And mares don't really tend to do that normally. So.
Their herd dynamics and gender and how it plays into herd dynamics plays a role, and we have to be aware of that when we're training too. Yeah. That's a whole other topic.
It is a bit of another topic, isn't it? Yeah,
but it would be an interesting topic sometime. Go down that rabbit hole. Rabbit holes.
Sutizes. I find my horse absorbs my feelings and stress, good or bad. So I try to read them and how they are feeling. If my horse is feeling a little off, I give him time and just massage him or sit next to him until he comes to me and wants me. That's a great idea. Yeah. They definitely do feel our feelings, and they respond to them, especially the sensitive ones. And there are sometimes, you know, they may reflect you. If the horse acts weird, maybe it's because we're feeling weird, or we're emotionally unbalanced. Maybe that's why the horse feels off.
Sometimes.
Especially if you have a close relationship, if you know the horse really well. I think that the closer the relationship, the more they will respond to our emotional state.
Definitely.
And I think it's, you know, in talking about how they're feeling, and how you might pick up on that, or how might they pick up on you. If you are quiet in yourself, you might feel what they're feeling too, because I think we're talking about the impact of the other on ourselves. And I can certainly, if I quiet myself and don't always worry about what he's feeling, I can actually start to feel what I'm feeling. And that is also an interesting part of having this more equal partnership, is that he feels something, it has an impact on me. I feel something, or I move in a particular way, it has an impact on him. Because I think there's a tendency with horses to always be focusing on them and what they're doing and what we want them to do or what we don't want them to do, or if we're more empathetic, you know, we worry about them or we feel concerned. But also to relate it back to yourself, to stay with yourself as well as being with your horse.
We do need to wrap it up, but we have one more comment I think Thomas would like to read.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So Sirius says, I'm at a point where I have had my mare from 6 months old, and she started her completion life at
maybe competition life.
Yeah, probably must be competition life at 4 until 10, and done well. We had a 3-year break. Now we've started training for the last 7 months, and I really don't know her and understand her. Hold on, I have to. I feel so isolated from her. I've started treatment of acupressure for her and told she's a metal horse and struggles to show her emotions.
Interesting.
Would be interesting to know how I mean, did you compete her or somebody else? And what happened maybe in the 3-year break?
Yeah, it sounds like
something must have changed.
There's more
somehow.
to this story. Yeah.
I mean, did she never show her emotions, or is that a new thing? Or it seems like there is more to it.
Yeah. Right. Let's see if she gives us a response.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting problem.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get a response in the Facebook group from Keris.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, or in in ongoing conversations.
In the ongoing conversation, yes, exactly.
Yes,
we will be back.
So we're going to wrap it up here. Kathleen, Howie made another comment too, but we really do need to wrap it up. Yeah, more comments coming in, but we really need to wrap it up. Yeah.
Eva says, love this conversation.
Yes.
Yeah,
So do we. Okay. Which group are we in? I have no idea. We're on the Ritter Dressage page.
Ritter Dressage, is that right?
Yeah, and we're on the YouTube channel. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it may be getting streamed into our Artistic Dressage community, but I'm not positive because I was having trouble getting that working.
So Sirius was saying, I competed her, but I feel she has changed after living out for 3 years.
Oh,
yes.
That can, that can change the relationship.
Give her time. Yeah. No,
I mean,
covered this
when you just turn her out, I mean, it could be that she felt abandoned, that she's mad at you.
Yeah.
And that it takes her a while to get over that. I mean, horses can be quite emotional that way. They can be very resentful if they feel like you've just cast them aside, and because they don't know why you do it, or
they don't understand
what happened in your life, so they sometimes take that personally, but maybe you can make up and restart the relationship with her. It's interesting.
Good.
Oh.
Eva Suhu says thank you, love you guys. We love you too.
Yeah.
So
internet is shaky.
It's okay because we're sharp and clear from London, even if a little bit wobbly and shaky from Portugal. All right. Good night, everybody, and see you guys soon.